The sun dipped low upon the horizon, painting the Aegean Sea with molten gold and rose-colored streaks that stretched across the sky like delicate brushstrokes of divine artistry. The waves lapped gently against the shore, whispering secrets only the attentive ear could catch. A faint scent of salt mingled with the perfume of wildflowers that clung to the cliffs and meadows, and in this quiet, magical hour, a soft breeze stirred, the evening breeze, carrying with it the subtle touch of the divine. From the heart of the foam-tipped waves, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, and desire, emerged. Her hair shimmered with the last light of the sun, cascading like molten gold over her shoulders, glinting with hints of rose and silver. Her eyes, deep and radiant, reflected the sea's infinite horizon and the flickering twilight sky. Each step she took on the soft sand left no mark, yet the air seemed to shimmer in her passage, alive with the scent of roses, myrrh, and the hidden pulse of the ocean. A gentle wind rose around her, not harsh or demanding, but playful and tender, brushing across olive groves, vineyards, and the quiet villages along the coast. This was no ordinary breeze. It was a messenger of the goddess herself, carrying her essence across the lands. It stirred the hearts of mortals, awakening longing, inspiration, and the tender stirrings of connection, even in those unaware of its origin. Lovers walking hand in hand felt a sudden warmth and awareness of each other's presence. Poets and musicians sensed a surge of creativity in their thoughts. Children playing along the shoreline paused in fascination, feeling as though the world itself had become magical for a fleeting moment. Aphrodite paused at the edge of the water, letting her gaze sweep across the horizon, where the last rays of the sun kissed distant islands. In the golden light, the world seemed fragile and eternal at once, as though it existed for her observation and subtle orchestration. She raised a delicate hand, and the breeze, as if commanded by an invisible conductor, swirled into the valleys, threading through olive trees, glinting over river bends, and teasing the petals of flowers in secluded meadows. In its gentle movement, it carried whispers of longing, glimpses of beauty, and sparks of inspiration, touching mortals in ways they could not yet understand. The goddess' attention shifted from the earth to the small villages perched upon cliffs overlooking the sea. In these settlements, mortals prepared for the evening. Families gathered around warm hearths, merchants closed their stalls, and wanderers returned from the hills, weary yet filled with the satisfaction of a day well lived. The evening breeze, infused with Aphrodite's power, found them all. For some, it carried the flutter of hope. A young couple stealing glances along the shore felt their hearts quicken. For others, it brought reflection. An artist staring at the waning light felt inspiration surge, as though the colors of the sky itself had whispered secrets of form and composition into their mind. Even the natural world responded. Trees swayed gently, as if nodding in agreement with the goddess' presence. Flowers bent toward the breeze, their petals releasing delicate fragrances. The waves mirrored the colors of the sky, shimmering and dancing, as if performing for the goddess herself. Even the birds altered their flight, gliding gracefully on the wind currents she had stirred, their songs harmonizing with the quiet sighs of the sea. Every element of creation seemed to breathe with Aphrodite's subtle magic, a symphony of beauty, love, and divine influence. Yet this evening was not merely a display of charm and allure. Aphrodite had observed the hearts of mortals for many seasons, noting desires fulfilled and unfulfilled, connections made and broken, and the tender vulnerability of those who dared to love. In the soft sway of the evening breeze, she carried lessons that love is not always immediate, that beauty is found not only in appearances but in action and intention, and that longing can awaken reflection, creativity, and growth. The mortal heart, she knew, was a landscape as vast and complex as any mountain range or ocean, capable of both deep sorrow and profound joy. And it was through this breeze, subtle and unseen, that she would guide them toward understanding, patience, and the courage to embrace both beauty and desire. Aphrodite's gaze turned toward the horizon once more, where the sun kissed the edge of the world and night began to spread its velvety darkness. Stars slowly awakened, twinkling like distant promises. The evening breeze carried her influence toward lands unknown, across meadows, forests, and the winding paths of villages hidden in the hills. Mortals would feel it as inspiration, as longing, as gentle guidance. Some would recognize its magic, some would sense only a whisper of feeling, and yet all were touched by her eternal presence. In this hour, where light and shadow blended, where the world seemed both infinite and intimate, Aphrodite began her quiet work. She moved among the hearts of mortals and gods alike, unseen yet intimately present, weaving subtle stories of connection, love, and beauty. Through the soft rustle of leaves, the gentle kiss of the wind, and the sigh of the waves, she would teach, inspire, and guide. And as the evening deepened, each heart touched by her presence became a silent participant in the eternal dance of desire, longing, and creative expression. Thus begins the tale of Aphrodite and the evening breeze, a story of love's subtle power, beauty's enduring influence, and the quiet guidance of a goddess whose presence is felt wherever hearts are stirred, eyes behold wonder, and inspiration takes flight. In the chapters to come, mortals will encounter trials, gifts, lessons, and revelations, each touched by the gentle, eternal hand of Aphrodite, carried across the world on the whispering currents of the evening breeze. Long before mortals wandered the hills and shores of Greece, long before villages were built with stone and mortar, and long before men and women sought the mysteries of the heart, the world was already alive with subtle forces that moved unseen yet profoundly. Among these forces was Aphrodite, born from the frothy embrace of the sea, a being whose very essence embodied love, beauty, and the stirring of desire. The legends say that when the foam gave birth to her, the waves themselves paused in awe, as though the universe recognized that a new kind of power had entered the world, not one of strength or dominion, but of gentle, irresistible influence. The sea, vast and endless, bore her upon its rolling tides, carrying her across hidden coves, secluded islands, and distant shores. The wind, noticing her radiance, began to dance lightly across the waters, trailing her presence far beyond the horizon. Wherever she passed, the air shimmered with the scent of jasmine, roses, and delicate lilies, blending with the natural fragrances of salt, earth, and sun-warmed stones. The world seemed to exhale in response, and mortals who lived along the coasts, fishermen, wanderers, shepherds, and children, felt a peculiar stirring in their hearts, as if a sudden longing had awakened without cause or reason. Aphrodite did not move merely for herself. Her eyes, deep and infinite, observed the scattered humans below. A young girl gathering herbs along the cliffside, her thoughts filled with curiosity and wonder. A shepherd pausing to watch his flock graze, sensing an unfamiliar thrill at the beauty surrounding him. A poet struggling to capture the emotions swelling in his heart. Each soul, unique and untrained in the art of subtle emotion, became a canvas upon which the goddess would paint the first lessons of desire, inspiration, and connection. In the quiet of that first evening, the evening breeze carried her whispers across the land. Not all could see her, for she was a creature of divine essence, but all could feel the soft touch of her presence. Some hearts quivered with joy, others with confusion, and some, unfamiliar with longing, trembled with awe. The mortals did not yet understand these sensations, for they were the first breaths of love, the gentle awakening of attraction, and the stirring of the soul's desire for beauty and connection. Aphrodite paused on a cliff overlooking a hidden cove, where the water glistened under the dying light of the sun. She stretched her arms wide, letting the breeze carry her influence into the hills, forests, and villages beyond. In one secluded village, a young woman paused mid-step, suddenly captivated by the shimmer of sunset on the tiles of her modest home. In a distant grove, a young man halted as a bird alighted nearby, and in that simple, fleeting moment, he felt a spark of admiration for the world's quiet wonders, an admiration that would later guide his actions, his art, and his heart. Even among the gods of Olympus, Aphrodite's birth was noted with quiet reverence. While some, like Hera, watched with suspicion at her growing influence over mortal and divine hearts, others, like Apollo, marveled at her power to inspire creation, song, and reflection. Zeus himself observed silently, understanding that her gifts, though subtle, could shape destinies in ways that brute strength or command never could. And so, the goddess began her first lessons, not through force or demand, but through subtle suggestion, beauty, and the gentle guidance of the evening breeze. In the first days of her influence, Aphrodite wandered the shores, cliffs, and valleys, exploring the world she had entered. Her presence was mirrored in small, delicate phenomena: the shimmer of sunlight on dew, the gentle curve of a flower's petal, the rhythm of waves curling upon the sand. Mortals, unaware of the divine source, often marveled at these simple wonders, feeling an inexplicable pull toward beauty and connection. It was in these moments, quiet and fleeting, that Aphrodite began the true work of her power, awakening the heart's capacity for desire, admiration, and love. The goddess also observed the varied nature of human desire, recognizing that longing could inspire both joy and sorrow. A shepherd falling in love with a maiden from a neighboring village would feel the tender thrill of anticipation. A young artist struggling to express beauty in clay or song would feel a sudden clarity of thought and vision. A wandering poet would glimpse inspiration in the rustle of leaves and the movement of light across a hillside. In all these moments, the evening breeze carried Aphrodite's subtle touch, guiding mortals toward experiences that would shape their understanding of themselves, others, and the world. Even the natural world seemed to respond to her presence. Trees swayed as if whispering encouragement to those beneath them. Flowers turned their faces toward the light in gestures that mirrored admiration and longing. Animals moved with a heightened sensitivity, their actions subtly guiding mortals along paths that would bring them into contact with beauty, connection, or revelation. The goddess understood that desire was not simply the stirring of the heart for another person. It was the awakening of attention, appreciation, and inspiration. It was a force that could cultivate artistry, insight, empathy, and courage. In villages across the coast, her influence stirred stories and songs even before they were consciously written. Children, sensing the magic in the breeze, danced along cliffs and shores, imagining unseen friends and whispered secrets carried on the wind. Young couples, walking hand in hand, felt sparks of recognition and fascination that would later blossom into enduring connections. Even solitary mortals, wandering through forests or along paths at dusk, sensed something beyond themselves, a quiet pull toward wonder, toward creation, toward the tender currents of the heart. And so the birth of desire began, not as a single explosive event, but as countless small awakenings, threads woven into the fabric of mortal life. Aphrodite, observing from the cliffs, understood that love and longing were not immediate, linear experiences. They were journeys, gradual and layered, shaped by observation, reflection, and subtle guidance. Through the evening breeze, she imparted her first lessons, that the heart is both fragile and resilient, that admiration can inspire action, and that beauty exists not only in appearance, but in courage, empathy, and the gentle touch of kindness. As the sun finally slipped beneath the horizon, painting the world in twilight hues of deep rose, violet, and gold, Aphrodite raised her gaze to the stars just beginning to twinkle in the heavens. Each star reflected a story yet to be written, a longing yet to be fulfilled, a spark of desire yet to be kindled. The evening breeze, infused with her divine essence, carried these possibilities across the lands, whispering in forests, villages, and hidden coves. Mortals would feel these stirrings in their hearts, sometimes as sudden insight, sometimes as fleeting inspiration, sometimes as the mysterious ache of longing. And thus begins the story of Aphrodite and the evening breeze, a tale of beauty, love, longing, and subtle divine influence, in which mortals learn, grow, and discover the true depth of desire under the guidance of a goddess, whose presence is felt in every whisper of wind, every shimmer of light, and every beat of the human heart. As the first stars appeared in the deepening sky, casting a silver glow over the hills and shores, Aphrodite moved gracefully among the lives of mortals, unseen yet intimately present. The evening breeze, infused with her divine essence, swirled gently through forests, villages, and valleys, carrying the whispers of possibility and the quiet stirrings of affection. In this hour, the goddess began her most intricate work, guiding hearts, teaching lessons in love, and shaping the delicate dance of desire that would ripple through generations. In a quiet coastal village, a young couple walked along the sand, their hands brushing in hesitant anticipation. Neither dared speak first, though their eyes lingered with longing. Aphrodite, observing from afar, let the evening breeze brush their cheeks, carrying the faint scent of jasmine and rose. The air seemed to carry unspoken encouragement, subtle hints guiding their attention to one another. The boy's courage swelled, and the girl's heartbeat quickened, as if the wind itself had whispered a gentle permission to trust, to reach out, to connect. Farther inland, a young poet sat beneath the olive trees, quill trembling in his hand. Words of longing and admiration struggled to form, trapped between hesitation and the ineffable weight of emotion. The evening breeze rustled the leaves above him, scattering petals along the ground, and as they danced at his feet, an idea sparked in his mind, a metaphor delicate yet profound that captured the first tremors of love he had felt but could not yet express. He wrote feverishly, guided by an unseen hand, and unknowingly, Aphrodite's subtle influence began to shape a song that would one day inspire others to feel deeply and observe carefully. Not all encounters were so simple. In a distant village, jealousy had begun to seed itself in the hearts of two rivals, each enamored with the same maiden. The wind carried whispers of wisdom through the twisting streets and shadowed courtyards, but the lessons were not always easy to perceive. Aphrodite did not force understanding, she offered subtle hints. A fallen leaf landing between their feet, a fleeting glance between eyes that could speak more than words, a brief hesitation in the rhythm of a passing bird. All these small signs were her teaching tools. Each rival, sensing the delicate balance of fate and intention, learned patience, reflection, and ultimately the importance of integrity in matters of the heart. Aphrodite's guidance extended beyond romantic desire. She taught mortals to recognize the value of friendship, loyalty, and empathy, reminding them that love manifests in countless forms. In a secluded grove, a young woman tended to her aging grandmother, feeling both duty and affection in her careful actions. The breeze carried the warmth of the goddess' influence, allowing the woman to perceive subtle ways to comfort, assist, and connect. Through these simple acts, Aphrodite demonstrated that love is not only expressed in grand gestures, but also in quiet attentiveness, in the gentle understanding of another's needs. Meanwhile, in a bustling town market, merchants and travelers moved among the stalls, unaware of the goddess' presence. Yet even here, her lessons found their way into the fabric of mortal life. A merchant who had grown impatient with a slow customer suddenly felt a soft nudge in his awareness, realizing that kindness and patience could foster trust, friendship, and prosperity. A young girl selling herbs glimpsed the courage to speak to a boy she admired, learning the delicate balance of honesty, charm, and empathy. Through these tiny, subtle interventions, Aphrodite cultivated understanding and emotional wisdom across every level of human experience. In the night, the goddess also observed the pain of unrequited love. In a village by the river, a young man gazed across the water at the woman he adored, knowing that her heart belonged to another. The evening breeze carried a hint of solace, a whisper of insight that the goddess sent to ease the ache in his chest. He learned that desire, though powerful, is not always fulfilled, and that the longing itself can teach patience, resilience, and reflection. Aphrodite's lessons were never cruel, but carefully designed, guiding mortals to grow through longing, disappointment, and the gentle shaping of expectation. Even the natural world became her partner in these teachings. Trees swayed to signal moments of pause or reflection. Birds sang melodies that mirrored emotion and mood, carrying subtle guidance to those who listened. Flowers opened their petals at precise moments, drawing attention to fleeting beauty, while rivers and streams glimmered with timing and rhythm that reflected the flow of human emotion. In every element, Aphrodite's influence was present, reminding mortals that love is intertwined with observation, timing, and a deep attentiveness to the world around them. Mortals were not always aware of these teachings. Some attributed sudden insights or inspirations to chance or coincidence, unaware that a goddess was subtly guiding their emotions, their creativity, and their connections. Yet the lessons were embedded, shaping thought, behavior, and choice. Young couples learned to communicate through gestures, glances, and shared experience. Artists discovered the depth of feeling required to express beauty. And children and elders alike perceived, in small moments, the delicate threads that connect hearts to hearts and humans to the world. As the night deepened, Aphrodite reflected on the power of subtlety. Love, she knew, cannot be forced. Desire cannot be commanded. Beauty, whether in form, spirit, or creation, must be nurtured, respected, and discovered. And so she continued her quiet interventions, weaving lessons through the evening breeze, allowing mortals to act, stumble, reflect, and grow. Each small success, each tender connection, and each moment of insight was a victory, a step in the long journey of desire and understanding. Thus, through whispered lessons of love, Aphrodite nurtured the first stirrings of connection, admiration, and emotional depth. Mortals began to understand that love is more than longing, more than fleeting attraction. It is attentiveness, patience, creativity, and empathy. The goddess' influence flowed silently, carried across the lands by the gentle evening breeze, guiding hearts toward understanding, reflection, and the blossoming of subtle desire. And so begins the intricate dance of hearts, minds, and emotions in the world, orchestrated by Aphrodite's unseen hand. From fleeting glances on moonlit beaches to quiet acts of kindness in shadowed villages, from the inspiration of art and music to the depth of emotional reflection, the goddess' presence is felt in every stir of longing and spark of beauty. It is here, in this delicate interplay of mortal lives and divine influence, that the story of Aphrodite and the evening breeze truly begins to unfold. As the moon rose higher over the rolling hills and quiet villages of ancient Greece, casting a pale silver glow across the world, Aphrodite continued her subtle work, guiding mortals along the delicate paths of the heart. Yet she knew that desire and affection were never simple. Love, in all its forms, demanded not only joy, but also courage, patience, and wisdom. And so she wove into the lives of mortals the trials of the heart, moments of longing, misunderstanding, and challenge that would test their capacity to love with clarity and compassion. In a village nestled between olive groves and the glimmering sea, a young couple experienced their first conflict. The boy, impulsive and full of fiery emotion, misinterpreted a casual glance from another girl as a betrayal, while the girl, tender yet independent, wrestled with her own insecurities. Aphrodite, observing from afar, let the evening breeze whisper across the cypress trees and through the narrow cobblestone streets. A gentle rustle of leaves, a drifting flower petal, a fleeting cooling gust. These subtle signals guided them to pause, breathe, and reflect. Slowly, they began to understand that miscommunication and fear could cloud perception, and that patience, openness, and honesty were the keys to resolving the tension. Meanwhile, a young artist living in a mountain hamlet struggled with unrequited love. His heart ached for a maiden whose affections lay elsewhere, and the pain of longing threatened to cloud his creativity. The evening breeze, carrying Aphrodite's essence, moved through his open window, brushing softly against his sketchbook and canvas. A stray petal drifted down onto his drawing, catching his eye and sparking a revelation. That love, though sometimes unfulfilled, could inspire beauty beyond measure. He began to channel his heartache into his art, discovering that the pangs of desire could be transformed into creations that spoke to the deepest truths of the human soul. In another village, two childhood friends realized that their bond had grown into something more complex. Yet fear of rejection and the potential loss of friendship caused hesitation, and for weeks they tiptoed around each other, unsure how to act. Aphrodite guided the evening breeze between them, carrying subtle messages: the scent of blooming roses, the soft vibration of a flute's melody from a passing musician, the glimmer of moonlight reflecting on a pond nearby. Each small nudge encouraged courage, reflection, and honest communication. Eventually, The friends began to understand that vulnerability was not weakness, but the gateway to deeper connection. Through trial, hesitation, and subtle divine guidance, they discovered the delicate balance of trust, honesty, and shared longing. Yet not all trials were gentle. In the wider world, jealousy and rivalry often tested hearts with a sharper edge. A merchant's son, enamored with a girl in his village, competed with a wealthy noble who sought to claim her attention through grandeur and gift-giving. The boy's heart burned with envy, and bitterness threatened to dominate his actions. Aphrodite's influence arrived as a quieter, more subtle intervention, a misaligned shadow, a sudden shift of wind, a bird that landed unexpectedly between the rivals, prompting reflection rather than confrontation. He realized that the strength of the heart lies not in competition or possession, but in integrity, empathy, and courage. In recognizing this truth, he found not only self-mastery, but also the capacity to honor love in its purest form. The goddess also guided mortals through the heartache of loss and separation. In a remote village, a young woman grieved for a lover who had departed to distant lands. Nights were long, and the absence weighed heavily upon her chest. The evening breeze stirred the candles on her windowsill and rustled the pages of her journal, carrying a whisper of comfort. Aphrodite's lesson was subtle but profound. Longing, though painful, cultivates resilience, self-awareness, and empathy. The woman began to find solace in the beauty of her surroundings, in the love of friends and family, and in the quiet joys of creation and reflection. Pain, she discovered, could transform the soul and deepen the capacity to connect with others. Even among those whose hearts were less disciplined, Aphrodite's guidance remained present. A mischievous youth, seeking attention and admiration, attempted to woo multiple maidens with flattery and charm. The goddess allowed subtle consequences to unfold. A misplaced word, a small embarrassment, a fleeting moment of recognition that his actions had caused hurt. Through these gentle trials, he learned that desire must be tempered with respect, honesty, and awareness of the feelings of others. Aphrodite's teaching was never harsh. Rather, it illuminated the natural consequences of imbalance and indiscretion, guiding mortals toward the understanding that love requires wisdom as much as passion. The trials of the heart extended beyond romantic entanglements. Mortals were tested in friendship, family bonds, and communal connections. A young sister, torn between her devotion to family and the call of her own ambitions, wrestled with guilt and uncertainty. Aphrodite, through the evening breeze, guided her toward reflection, clarity, and compassionate negotiation of priorities. In another town, neighbors in conflict over land, resources, or reputation were subtly influenced by the goddess' presence. A well-timed gust of wind that carried a forgotten note, a chance encounter under blooming trees, a quiet shift in perspective inspired by the beauty of the night. Slowly, hearts softened, misunderstandings were resolved, and bonds of trust and cooperation were reinforced. Through these myriad trials, Aphrodite taught that love is never static. It is a living force that tests, teaches and transforms. Desire can inspire joy and sorrow, patience and impulsiveness, generosity and envy. The evening breeze, her constant companion, carried these lessons gently across the world, touching mortals with subtlety rather than force, encouraging reflection rather than obedience. Through challenge and reflection, hearts grew attuned to beauty, connection, and the deeper currents of empathy. As the night deepened, the stars twinkled in their silent constellations, and the moon cast its soft, silver light over hills, rivers, and villages. Aphrodite observed with satisfaction, knowing that the trials she wove were shaping the hearts of mortals in ways visible only to those willing to perceive, to feel, and to reflect. Each trial, each heartbreak, each moment of hesitation or doubt was a seed planted for growth, wisdom, and a deeper appreciation of love's subtle power. In these quiet hours, the goddess' presence remained intangible yet undeniable. The evening breeze carried her lessons to those who listened, breathed through forests and valleys, and settled over sleeping villages. Love, she reminded mortals, was not merely a feeling, it was an education of the soul, a journey requiring patience, courage, and attentiveness. And it was through these trials of the heart that mortals would learn to recognize the enduring beauty of connection, the resilience of longing, and the profound wisdom embedded in both joy and sorrow. Thus, the story of Aphrodite and the evening breeze continued to unfold, weaving through countless lives, guiding hearts through complexity, and teaching that the truest understanding of love emerges not in ease, but in the patient navigation of trials, challenges, and reflection. With the trials of the heart guiding mortals toward understanding, Aphrodite began the next phase of her quiet work, bestowing gifts that would endure long after the evening breeze had passed through villages, forests, and hills. These gifts were not given lightly, nor were they merely material or superficial. They were subtle, profound, and transformative, gifts of heart, mind, and spirit that would illuminate mortal lives in ways both visible and unseen. In a quiet glade beneath an ancient olive tree, a young poet struggled to capture the essence of love and longing in words. His verses were hesitant, trembling, incomplete. The evening breeze stirred around him, carrying the delicate fragrance of roses and the soft murmur of distant waves. Aphrodite's presence brushed against his consciousness like sunlight through leaves, imparting not answers but clarity. His hands moved with newfound certainty, his heart attuned to the ebb and flow of emotion. What had been confusion became inspiration, and the poet discovered that the power of expression is born not from force, but from attunement to subtle currents of feeling. Elsewhere in a bustling market town, a young craftsman fashioned jewelry with care and precision, yet he struggled to imbue his creations with the beauty and warmth that would make them resonate with others. As he labored, the evening breeze fluttered through the streets, scattering petals from nearby gardens and brushed softly against his workbench. Aphrodite's subtle influence awakened his perception. The gentle curve of a flower petal, the soft gleam of sunlight on a dew-covered leaf, the rhythmic movement of birds in flight. Infused with these observations, his creations began to shine not merely in form, but in spirit, imbued with the power to evoke admiration, emotion, and connection. In this way, Aphrodite taught that beauty is not only in the eye of the beholder, but in the care, attention, and intention of the creator. Gifts were not confined to artistry alone. In a small village by the river, a young woman tended to her aging parents, balancing love, duty, and the challenges of daily life. She often felt overwhelmed, unsure of how to navigate the demands placed upon her heart. Aphrodite, through the evening breeze, offered the gift of empathy and perception. The woman found herself attuned to the subtle needs of those around her, a flicker of worry in her father's eyes, a trembling sigh from her mother, or the unspoken longing of her siblings. These gifts allowed her to act with care, to anticipate needs, and to nurture with gentle wisdom. Through such guidance, Aphrodite taught that love is as much about understanding and attentiveness as it is about passion and desire. The goddess also bestowed gifts of courage and self-awareness, especially for those facing trials of longing and unfulfilled desire. In a distant village, a young man pined for a love that seemed forever out of reach. His heart ached, threatening to cloud his spirit with despair. The evening breeze brushed against his cheek, carrying with it a whisper of divine encouragement. He felt a sudden clarity. That desire, though sometimes unfulfilled, could be transformed into resilience, self-knowledge, and creativity. He began to channel his yearning into music, his melodies reflecting the deep currents of his heart. Through this gift, Aphrodite revealed that the challenges of longing were not obstacles, but catalysts for growth and self-expression. Even communities felt her touch. In towns and villages, mortals began to notice subtle shifts in their interactions, neighbors showing kindness where previously there was indifference, friendships deepening through shared reflection, acts of cooperation and understanding blossoming where rivalry had once reigned. The evening breeze carried her influence to inspire empathy, generosity, and awareness of others' hearts. In this way, Aphrodite's gifts extended beyond individuals, shaping societies and communities with an invisible, gentle hand, fostering bonds of trust, care, and mutual admiration. Not all gifts were immediately recognized, for Aphrodite's power was subtle and patient. A young artist might awaken in the middle of the night with a sudden vision of a sculpture. A poet might sense a sudden surge of lyric thought, and a young child might instinctively comfort a friend in sorrow. In each case, the gifts were not blatant, but intuitive, allowing mortals to discover their value through reflection, effort, and attentiveness. Aphrodite taught that divine gifts are not imposed. They are revealed, nurtured, and cultivated through mindful engagement with the world and with one's own heart. Through these bestowals, mortals began to understand the multifaceted nature of love. It is not only the spark of passion or the thrill of attraction. It is the attentiveness to beauty, the courage to act with integrity, the empathy to understand others, and the creativity to express the inexpressible. Aphrodite's guidance ensured that mortals could navigate desire with wisdom, turning fleeting inspiration into lasting understanding. Even the natural world participated in these lessons. Flowers opened in response to the breeze, their petals glistening with dew, as if applauding the efforts of mortals learning to perceive and appreciate. Birds sang melodies in patterns that mirrored emotional growth and understanding. Rivers shimmered under moonlight, reflecting not only the stars above, but the potential of hearts attuned to beauty and connection. Every element of creation was a conduit for the goddess' influence, a reminder that the gifts of love, empathy, and creativity were woven into the fabric of the world itself. Aphrodite also nurtured the moral dimension of desire. Mortals were encouraged to act with care, respect, and ethical consideration. Those who sought affection for selfish gain found the gifts tempered by subtle lessons, a missed opportunity, a fleeting disappointment, or a reflection on the pain their actions caused others. Through such experiences, mortals discovered that true love and beauty require responsibility, mindfulness, and reverence for the hearts of others. The goddess' gifts were never indulgent. They were always instructive, fostering growth, self-awareness, and the capacity to act with kindness. As the night deepened and the stars shone brighter, Aphrodite continued to weave her presence into the lives of mortals, unseen yet profoundly influential. The evening breeze carried her lessons to every corner, to lovers learning patience, to artists seeking inspiration, to friends cultivating empathy, to those enduring longing or loss. Through these gifts, the goddess ensured that the journey of desire was not merely a trial, but a path toward wisdom, creativity, and enduring connection. Thus, the story of Aphrodite and the evening breeze unfolded further, revealing that the gifts of the goddess were both subtle and eternal. They touched hearts, inspired minds, and nurtured souls, reminding mortals that love is more than fleeting desire. It is attentiveness, creativity, empathy, courage, and the mindful recognition of beauty in every form. Through her influence, the evening breeze became not merely a whisper of longing, but a messenger of enduring wisdom, guiding the hearts of mortals toward the fullness of their potential. As dawn approached, brushing the eastern horizon with pale gold and soft lavender, Aphrodite gazed upon the world she had quietly nurtured through the night. The evening breeze, now slowing in its dance, carried the accumulated lessons, trials, and gifts she had bestowed upon mortals. Though unseen, her influence had left traces in hearts, minds, and the very fabric of nature. The dawn's gentle light revealed these legacies subtly, in the movements of humans, the patterns of life, and the beauty interwoven into everyday existence. In the coastal village, the young couple who had once stumbled through miscommunication now walked hand in hand with newfound understanding. The boy's impulsive nature had been tempered by patience, the girl's hesitancy softened by trust. Each glance, each word, each act of care reflected the invisible guidance of Aphrodite, who had taught them that love requires reflection, empathy, and courage. The evening breeze that had whispered between them now seemed to linger, a gentle reminder of the lessons they had absorbed, lessons that would ripple through their lives, shaping future generations in subtle yet profound ways. Elsewhere, the young poet, inspired in the quiet of the olive grove, had completed a series of verses that captured the essence of longing, admiration, and fleeting beauty. His words spread through the region, sung by travelers, recited by children, and cherished by elders. Mortals far removed from his village felt the echoes of his inspiration, and though they did not perceive the hand of Aphrodite, her influence permeated every line, every melody, and every sigh of emotion evoked. In this way, the goddess ensured that the legacy of love and beauty was not confined to a single moment, but woven into the living narrative of humanity. The young craftsman's jewelry glimmered with the subtle grace and elegance imparted by the goddess. Those who wore it were imbued with confidence, poise, and a gentle sense of admiration from others. The objects became more than adornments. They were conduits of inspiration, reflections of beauty cultivated through attention, intention, and divine influence. Aphrodite's gifts had transformed ordinary acts of creation into enduring legacies, reminding mortals that beauty and love are cultivated through mindful engagement with the world and those around them. Aphrodite's lessons extended even into hardship and unfulfilled longing. The young woman who had grieved her absent lover discovered, through reflection and patience, that love could endure in unexpected ways. She formed deep connections with friends and family, inspired by empathy and understanding, and found joy in the beauty of her surroundings. The evening breeze, now gentle and steady, carried her gratitude and insight across the landscape, touching other hearts in silent, cascading waves. In this manner, the goddess ensured that the lessons of longing, patience, and reflection became enduring elements in mortal lives, shaping not only emotions, but also character and resilience. The goddess also watched over communities that had grown stronger through her subtle guidance. Villages once marked by rivalry or indifference now displayed quiet cooperation, understanding, and respect. Markets thrived with kindness and generosity. Schools of thought blossomed with creativity and collaboration, and families nurtured one another with attentive care. The evening breeze moved through the towns, carrying the accumulated lessons of the night, lessons in empathy, patience, integrity, and appreciation of beauty, leaving an indelible imprint upon the fabric of communal life. Even nature bore the traces of Aphrodite's influence. Trees, nurtured by the gentle wind, seemed taller, more graceful, their leaves reflecting sunlight with renewed brilliance. Rivers and streams shimmered with clarity, reflecting not only the sky above, but the subtle harmony within human hearts. Birds and animals moved in rhythms that echoed the lessons imparted by the goddess: harmony, attentiveness, and responsiveness to the needs of others. The world itself had absorbed her guidance, creating a legacy that intertwined mortal life with the patterns and poetry of nature. Aphrodite also ensured that the lessons of the evening breeze would endure through generations. Young lovers who had experienced her influence shared stories, songs, and teachings with their children, embedding the principles of attentiveness, empathy, and reflection into the collective consciousness. Artists, poets, and musicians, inspired by fleeting moments touched by divine influence, created works that would resonate long after their mortal lives ended. In every act of creation, expression, or understanding, Aphrodite's guidance continued to echo, reinforcing the timeless connection between beauty, desire, and the human experience. The goddess paused on a cliff overlooking the sea, where waves sparkled with the light of the rising sun. The breeze swirled gently around her, carrying the stories of all she had touched. She smiled, knowing that her subtle influence had begun a chain of ripples that would move through countless lives, inspiring love, creativity, empathy, and resilience. The lessons she had woven, the trials of the heart, the gifts of perception and courage, and the awakening of desire, had become an enduring tapestry of human experience, one that would continue to evolve and inspire long after this single night. Aphrodite's presence, though invisible, had left the world fundamentally changed. Mortals now carried within them the quiet awareness of beauty, the spark of desire tempered with understanding, and the knowledge that love requires patience, attentiveness, and reflection. Communities were subtly more compassionate, artists more inspired, and individuals more attuned to the delicate currents of emotion that flow through every heart. The evening breeze, though it had calmed, still lingered in the awareness of those who had been touched, a perpetual reminder of the goddess' subtle, enduring guidance. As dawn fully claimed the sky, the stars fading into the light of a new day, Aphrodite withdrew from mortal sight, her work complete yet ongoing. The legacy of love and beauty remained, woven into the hearts and minds of mortals, the rhythm of communities, and the song of nature itself. Every fluttering leaf, every shimmering wave, every quiet glance between lovers carried her subtle imprint, a testament to the enduring influence of a goddess whose power lay not in dominance, but in the gentle, transformative touch of the heart. Thus concludes the final chapter of this tale, the legacy of love and beauty left by Aphrodite and her evening breeze. It is a story not only of longing and desire, but of reflection, empathy, creativity, and enduring connection. Mortals and nature alike were forever enriched by her presence, guided by her wisdom, and inspired by her subtle, eternal touch. And as long as the evening breeze continues to whisper through the hills, the seas, and the valleys, Aphrodite's influence remains, an eternal reminder that love, in its truest form, is a guiding force, a teacher, and a timeless legacy. As the sun climbed higher into the sky, painting the world with the gentle gold and soft pink of early morning, the quiet influence of Aphrodite lingered in the hearts of mortals. Though she had withdrawn from mortal sight, her presence remained as tangible as the soft rustle of leaves, the shimmer of sunlight on water, and the whisper of the evening breeze that had guided countless lives through longing, discovery, and growth. The world was forever transformed, carrying within it the subtle imprints of a goddess whose power lay not in force or command, but in gentle inspiration and profound understanding. Every heart that had felt the touch of her guidance, whether in fleeting desire, quiet admiration, the courage to speak, or the creative spark that ignited artistry and song, carried forward her lessons. Mortals learned that love is never a simple gift. It is a journey, a teacher, and a companion, shaping character, perception, and the way humans engage with the world around them. Those who had experienced joy, heartache, longing, or inspiration discovered that each moment, each sensation, each stirring of emotion was a thread in the intricate tapestry woven by the goddess. Across villages and forests, rivers and hills, the evening breeze continued to move softly, whispering memories of nights touched by divine grace. Lovers remembered the gentle guidance that had helped them navigate the challenges of affection and connection. Artists recalled the subtle inspiration that had allowed their creations to capture the ineffable beauty of desire. Families and friends carried the lessons of empathy, patience, and attentiveness, realizing that love extends far beyond romantic passion. It resides in acts of care, in understanding, in the willingness to see the world and others with thoughtful eyes. Even nature, as if remembering the goddess' presence, seemed infused with quiet reverence. Trees stood taller, their leaves rustling like whispered encouragements. Streams glimmered under sunlight, as if reflecting the joy of hearts that had discovered courage and empathy. Birds sang in patterns that mirrored the unfolding rhythm of human connection. Flowers turned their faces toward warmth, petals trembling with subtle grace, as though celebrating the enduring beauty that Aphrodite had nurtured in the hearts of mortals. In every corner of the world, her influence remained, invisible but profoundly felt. Aphrodite's work had never been about control or domination. It had always been about awakening the potential within mortals, teaching them to recognize the depth of their own hearts, the fragility and resilience of desire, and the enduring value of beauty, kindness, and empathy. Through trials, gifts, and subtle guidance, she had shown that love is not a momentary thrill, but a lifelong journey, a journey that begins with awareness, flourishes through experience, and endures through reflection and understanding. And so the legacy of the evening breeze became eternal, even as mortals grew, aged, and eventually passed into the memory of the world. The lessons of Aphrodite endured. Children learned from their parents the importance of attentiveness and care. Friends carried forward the insights of patience, empathy, and trust. Artists, poets, and creators immortalized the delicate stirrings of desire and admiration in works that would be cherished for generations. In these ways, the goddess' subtle touch continued to ripple through time, shaping not only individual lives but the collective spirit of humanity. As the day progressed, the world seemed to hum with a quiet, unseen energy, a gentle, constant reminder of Aphrodite's presence. Mortals went about their lives, sometimes unaware of the divine influence that had touched them, yet they felt it in the steady rhythm of their hearts, the beauty they sought and created, and the connections they nurtured. The evening breeze, now calmer and carrying the memory of its past journeys, whispered through valleys, forests, and seas, carrying with it the eternal essence of love, beauty, and subtle divine guidance. In the end, the story of Aphrodite and the evening breeze is not merely a tale of a goddess and mortals. It is a reflection of the eternal relationship between desire, wisdom, creativity, and empathy. It is a reminder that beauty can be found in the most delicate gestures, that love requires attentiveness and reflection, and that even the quietest influences can shape hearts, minds, and worlds. Every glance of admiration, every creative spark, every act of kindness is a testament to the enduring presence of Aphrodite, guiding mortals with invisible hands, whispering lessons in the softest winds, and leaving a legacy of love and beauty that transcends time itself. And so, as the day unfolds and the evening breeze carries on its eternal journey, the story comes to rest, not in conclusion, but in quiet continuation. The whispers remain, the hearts remember, and the world, ever more attuned to the lessons of desire and connection, moves forward, enriched by the presence of a goddess whose touch is as gentle as the breeze and as eternal as love itself.